Hello. I am Camden Walker for CapitalWeatherGang.com. We're live tonight talking about a hot start to our work week, and then some rain start arriving middle of the week, which become more and more influenced by Debbie's arrival in our area, most likely at the end of the week and maybe into Saturday as well. So let's discuss rain amounts, some uncertainties and confidence levels with this forecast. But first things first, we are watching at WashingtonPost.com/weather Debbie's arrival in Florida. So please stay tuned to our national coverage there. And the temperatures locally are going to be hot and somewhat humid, and maybe a little bit of a break in the humidity tomorrow, but still pretty darn summery. And we're adding more and more to our heat tracker. We're going to arrive at about our average number of days of 90 degrees or hotter already by this point in the summer, as of I think Tuesday, it looks like. So hopefully, as a cold front moves through later Tuesday, we can cool things off for Wednesday into the rest of the week. And that cold front that's sagging southward out of Pennsylvania and bringing us some cooler air, not refreshing or lower humidity per se, but this front stalls out over our region and becomes a focal point for rains even ahead of Debby. It should enhance with Debby bringing onshore flow, which is easterly winds off of the Atlantic and the Chesapeake Bay. This should increase the moisture, lift, and availability of rains even as early as Wednesday, an indirect influence perhaps as Debby gets closer Thursday, Friday, and into the weekend. Hi, Liz. Thanks for tuning in on Facebook. Good evening, David. Hi, Ruth Elisa. Thanks so much for tuning in. And let's see, we've got the heat index. I'm also a little concerned about. Just so you know, low to mid 90s are the high temperatures on the thermometer expected for Monday and Tuesday. But when you think about even slightly less humid conditions, tolerable humidity, the heat index levels could still be around 100 degrees for Monday and Tuesday. So we're not out of the woods yet if you're disliking the heat and humidity. We have a couple more days, it looks like, before a cold front tries to cool us off, maybe with some thunderstorms, a couple of which could be strong Tuesday afternoon, Tuesday evening, and maybe early night on Tuesday. But the heat index around 100 degrees, it looks like, for Monday and Tuesday. So precipitation this week looks pretty much dry tomorrow, pretty low chances for rain on Monday. But Tuesday, cold front does start sagging southward, then Debby starts making its way toward our region. Lots of uncertainty on the exact track. It looks like winds won't really be a story, but the rains associated with Debby, even if they are indirectly influenced by an easterly wind off of the Atlantic and Chesapeake Bay, could arrive, enhancing some rains near our cold front that stalls out the region as early as Wednesday. So more direct rains from Debby. Heavier downpours look like they are leaning toward Thursday. This is the chance for flooding downpours below here. And this is for Thursday as it looks right now. So fairly, relatively high confidence for some flooding downpours in kind of south central Virginia, south of DC. But all of us in the green still have kind of a marginal, ever so slight chance of seeing some flooding downpours, and slight in there in the yellow. So not too high of a chance, but this shows you kind of the more confident areas where Debbie's rains could focus, could be the heavier rains. And again, rainfall amounts are pretty impressive if you are living along and east of the Blue Ridge Mountains. Now, you can see there's a very quick change in rainfall amounts west of the Blue Ridge, west of I-81. That gradient, that quick change over a short geographic distance, that kind of shows us there on the edge of the range. That's where lower confidence is on the rain amounts if you are along and west of I-81. And unfortunately, that's where the drought is the worst in the region. Hopefully, we can overcome some of these persistent geographical patterns to the rains that continue to avoid parts of the multi-state area, the higher elevations of our greater DC region in the Mid-Atlantic. But there is, a chance for some rains, even if we don't completely alleviate the drought. Something's better than nothing, and at least we do have chances for over an inch of rain, even west of the Blue Ridge. All right. Hi, Ron V. Weather. Good to see you. Good to see you on YouTube. And Trisha. Indeed, rain totals could be very healthy particularly along and east of I-95 and even into central Virginia. Um, So uncertainty remains, right? We're watching the track of Debby. If it scoots a little bit to the west, we can move all of these rain amounts a little bit further to the west by 50 to 75 miles, let's say, as an example. And we should be able to refine the forecast with each passing day going forward this work week. Just allow us time to evaluate the latest data. But the good news is rain is coming. Final amounts to be determined. Final track is what is dependent on that. That's to be determined for Debbie's remnants. More good news though, severe weather chances look low, wind chances look low. I think just kind of some elevated breezes. And we could generally use these rains, but Thursday, if that turns out to be the focal point of the direct rains from Debbie, and Debbie does kind of slow down over our area, let's say on Thursday, we could see some flooding chances, flooding downpours. Still, right now, looking many days out, of course, with medium confidence at best, we're looking, the rain chance could be a little too much of a good thing too quickly by the time we come on to Thursday. And I think these rains from Debbie could last into Saturday, but of course, stay tuned to Capital Weather Gang. We're at WashingtonPost.com/weather. I'm Camden Walker for the Sunday Sunset Live Q&A chat that we do every Sunday. Really good seeing you on our social media channels. All right. And David, the soils are generally accepting of a lot of rain, but I've noticed the range, the amount of rain we can receive in 3 or 6 hours really can be as low as an inch and a half now that we've seen some recent rains, David. So, urban environments, especially, I would say an inch and a half in 3 hours is kind of questionable. That's where artificial surfaces allow quick runoff. And that's where kind of sewage systems also have a limit on how much they can drain from these quick runoff developing from these artificial surfaces where there's no natural soils to absorb some of these downpours. So I think we'll need to watch urban areas. We'll need to watch places along and east of I-95 that have received rains a little more frequently, a little more on repeat recently, and not in the drought zone, which soils in the drought area are, generally speaking, a little more receptive to heavier rains, able to absorb the impact of potential heavier rains. Matt, you're most welcome. Thanks for tuning in from Facebook. And Liz, I would love it if we could stay in the 80s for August, but I can, for now, at least promise you that the cold front on Tuesday evening, which could set off thunderstorms, a few of which might be strong, that does bring with it some cooler air, still humid, Wednesday and on into the weekend. We generally are focused on 80s. There's a chance we don't hit 90 for a little while, so that's great news. And then looking beyond that, I will say that I've looked into next work week and temperatures are leaning below average and they're in the light blue. Given it's a lean, right? It's a slight probability of leaning below average, but I'll take it. I mean, the average high temperatures, for instance, are coming down slowly as we get past the peak of the peak, the hottest time of midsummer. So this is encouraging. It's some signal for avoiding 90 degrees perhaps or hotter next work week, and maybe an indirect indication that humidity still sticks around. There's the atmosphere leaning with slight probability of above average precipitation for next work week as well. So this is generally good news. We could use this to maybe further get ahead on the drought, filling in the drought and rain deficit that we do have west of town. All of our coverage is available at washingtonpost.com/weather. We have national coverage watching as Debbie comes on shore in Florida and some historic rainfalls and very high, unfortunate, high historic potential, flooding potential there in the southeastern United States. Luckily, we should not have quite as huge of an impact by the time Debbie gets toward the mid-Atlantic, but we do have articles and tracking maps for you at WashingtonPost.com/weather. I'm Camden Walker for Capital Weather Gang. We're doing our weekly Sunday Sunset Chat. Good to see you. Appreciate you tuning in. And we're talking about Debbie and how it could cool us off after a hot start to our work week, Monday and Tuesday in the 90s, but then 80s for the rest of the week, even though we're still remaining humid. David, I want to say late October for that. And then Julia, yep, I bet your plants need rain. Thanks for tuning in on YouTube. And Liz would love to say goodbye to the humidity, but unfortunately, Let me show you the dew points this week. We're going to be pretty uncomfortable. Maybe a small break in the middle of the day tomorrow where dew points dip into maybe the 60s below that 70-degree mark. So let's call it sticky and pleasant tomorrow with heat index values potentially around 100 degrees tomorrow. So please keep that in mind, even though dew points kind of behave maybe for tomorrow. They tick back up for Tuesday, I think, and into the rest of this week. But heat index values around 100 are possible when you're combining the air temperature with the high humidity for Monday and Tuesday. And we've had worse. We've had worse humidity. I grant you that. We've had worse heat index values, but as we get later into August, hopefully we can have a little bit less of the muggy, gross, or even sultry levels of these dew points. And the purple is pretty darn uncomfortable. The 70-degree marker for dew points is the purple line there on this animation above me. So Debby, as it tracks toward our region by the middle late part of this week, will add to our humidity. We're going to stay pretty humid for most of this week. All right, so let's look at the PM update here that I have for you at WashingtonPost.com/weather. And of course, we're tracking Debby and our national coverage at the site at Capital Weather Gang as well. Forecast at a glance above, a hot start to our work week, cooling off with some rain chances increasing in middle and late part of this week. Debby enhances rains maybe as early as Wednesday, a more direct influence on our rains. It looks like by Thursday, Friday, and maybe even to Saturday as well. But it could feel like 100, of course, on Monday and perhaps Tuesday as well. Yeah, Patricia, looks like it's going to stay humid. Sean, I think there could be a little bit of rough surf even into next weekend, Sean. Thanks for tuning in from X. And David, we are several inches behind on rainfall this year, particularly in the drought region west of DC. So we need many inches there. I would say over 5 inches to really get better on even keel. And we don't want 5 inches all at once west of DC, even though the soils could be receptive to some fairly heavy soaking rains at times, but we don't want too much of a good thing at once, right? Too quickly. So rainfall, excuse me, wow, temperatures are animated below just to indicate how it's going to be pretty warm, hot, low to mid 90s for Monday and Tuesday. Humidity pretty much with us most of this week, but we could get a small break tomorrow, and that's why low to mid 90s might merely feel like 100 degrees on Monday and Tuesday instead of 105 or 110. So we'll take what we can get. All right, Matt, you're most welcome for the update. And thanks for tuning in from Florida. Looks like you got 8 inches of rain. Wind not too bad. I'm glad to hear that. And Eric, I know I'm hoping we can get more than an inch of rain for you west of the Blue Ridge. We just want to get a little more confidence on that track for Debby being a little closer toward you in the Blue Ridge Mountains. Yep, Michael, we're on a downward trend on temperatures, especially Wednesday onward this week. And thanks for tuning in from Facebook. All right. And David, yes, indeed, we have been a little bit dry, so that does help limit the flash flood impact, but I think rains will even overcome the receptive soils that are wanting rain. I think even by Thursday, we could see some of these downpours turn into a little too much too quickly on Thursday. So a marginal chance of flooding downpours in the green, and then a slight chance for flooding downpours Thursday is this map as Debby kind of starts sitting over us perhaps as early as Thursday. This could be our heaviest rain day this week. We'll see. There are uncertainties on timing, exact track of Debby, and the rainfall amounts ultimately that follow, but it does look like we could get several inches of rain, especially more confident along and east of I-95. Now we'll see if we can move Debby's track a little bit more to the west. Confidence will go up west of the Blue Ridge that we can get maybe a little more than 2 inches of rain into the Blue Ridge. We'll see. I don't want to take off the table that we have an inch, maybe a little bit less west of the Blue Ridge. If Debby does sneak a little bit more to the east, that there is that uncertainty, and there are those scenarios on the table right now. This assumes a fairly central, kind of central Virginia track to Debby, and then it heads offshore slowly into this weekend. But that is subject to change, and we'll refine our forecast at Capital Weather Gang at WashingtonPost.com/weather as we get closer to this weekend. All right. Let's see. We've got Ruth Elisa on Facebook. Thanks so much for tuning in. And Stephen, I know I want some snow too. I can't promise you any anytime soon. Let's see. let's see. Patricia is glad to be working during the heat on Monday, Tuesday. That's a good point. And we are seeing very hot and humid temperatures. A lot of our records have been set in the last 10 years, Patricia. Deborah, appreciate you tuning in and kind words on Facebook. And let's see, Stephen, I think fewer and fewer people, they're with you. They're complaining less and less about the cold temperatures during the winter in DC, thanks to these ever hotter and more humid summers. Sean, thanks for tuning in on X. You're most welcome. And 10-day outlook, Charles, thanks for tuning in from X. Let's take a look at the next work week that I have prepared for you. PM update there at the top and forecast at a glance. I'll put back up in just a moment. But looking ahead to next work week, temperatures above me and precipitation below, leaning, believe it or not, below average temperatures in that light blue above me, and leaning above average, slight probability for above average precipitation next work week. So maybe we still have a chance of not hitting 90 degrees next week. I know it's crazy to think about, but it's possible. If we do have some rain and some clouds around, that increases the chances that we can kind of stay a little below average next work week. And our average high temperatures are starting to come down, sag a little bit back into the 80s for this point in August. We're past the hottest time of year in July. All right. So let's see. I've got the National Hurricane Center watching a disturbance even behind Debby. We were going to stay active in the tropics. Got to warn you, the tropics are looking active for the next 2 weeks at least. But we've got national coverage for you. The latest Debby tracker is at WashingtonPost.com/weather here at the blog for Capital Weather Gang. And Debby updates even from Florida, we are included in our national coverage as well. Should make landfall later tonight in Florida, slowly meander up the coast of the southeastern United States. Historic rainfall and flooding is possible, unfortunately, in the southeastern United States. Muted impacts, relatively speaking, by the time Debby meanders our way toward the end of this week. But enhanced rains, indirect enhancement of rainfall, could arrive as early as Wednesday in the mid Atlantic this week as well. All right, yep, David, I like the below average temperatures potentially and above average precip, both with slight probability for next work week. Yes, indeed. Marie, you're most welcome. Thanks so much for tuning in. I'm on the air another 3 minutes, it looks like. Let me know, anyone, if you have any questions or comments. I'm Camden Walker for Capital Weather Gang. We're at WashingtonPost.com/weather. Anytime you need us. All right. Rebecca, I would love to encourage monarchs. I hope this is a healthy weather pattern for them. And Liz, sweater, weather, please. I will talk to you again maybe in October. And a social worker on X, appreciate you tuning in. And yes, a lot of trees and shrubs are suffering from this very serious drought. It's the almost the second to worst possible drought west of town. So we are very mindful here in the red areas that we definitely need a good amount of rain. Even in the lesser drought areas around that region, we could use it. A lot of rain, and we might get it. That is the good news about Debby potentially bringing us several inches of rainfall this week. So fingers crossed, but confidence to be determined as we get closer on the final track, which determines where the final heavier rainfalls actually fall later this week. Lower confidence west of the Blue Ridge, as you can see, lesser amounts predicted there. We'll see though, this could shift east or west just a little bit, and we're talking about indirect influence of rains maybe arriving as soon as Wednesday. We have a cold front even bringing us a couple strong storms potentially Tuesday, and that could stall out and fall apart over us by Wednesday as Debby's eastern fetch of wind off of the Atlantic and the Chesapeake Bay. That's going to kind of force rains to maybe develop as early as Wednesday. Indirectly speaking, it's from Debby's outer influence, but more of the direct heavier rains should arrive, I think, on Thursday as it stands now. But timing, track, rainfall amounts, all subject to change. We are watching it, and there's decent confidence, but there's still enough uncertainty that we want you to stay tuned to Capital Weather Gang as we go forward this week. Annette, thanks so much for tuning in. Steve, I do hope we can help you better in Montgomery County. And Charles, we did talk about the 10-day outlook. Sean, thanks for tuning in. And Patrick, just watch the tropics, but you might be okay if you go to the Outer Banks and after this week. But there could be some flooded roads out here and there over the next 7 days. And thanks for tuning in from X Coconuts. It looks like you need to be very careful if you're in Myrtle Beach. I would please be following all local emergency managers. If you're asked to evacuate, there's potentially historic rainfall there. I'm very concerned about South Carolina. So please make sure you are having a plan B and ready to act if you are ordered to evacuate. If you're, I'm assuming you're on the coast there on the beach. Yeah. Uh, Beth, Beth is saying we don't really get cold temperatures in the winter. That's sometimes true. Marie, you're most welcome. And April, you're most welcome. And Ruth, Elisa, I think some weak thunderstorms are possible on Wednesday. More of kind of a soaking rain and downpour. I don't know if they'll have necessarily a lot of lightning and thunder with them by Wednesday. But we could see a few pieces of lightning and some thunder, but generally, these are going to be tropical downpours this week, potentially limited thunder and lightning. But we'll have to watch it as we get closer, what the nature of these heavier downpours could be. But I just want to draw your attention. Thursday, we need the rain here in the drought zones for sure. But Thursday could be the day where we need to really start worrying a little bit about flash flood concerns, where we have rainfall, flooding, rainfall, downpours possible here on Thursday. And there's decent confidence. This kind of also shows you there's decent confidence that Debbie's rains track maybe into South Central Virginia come by Thursday. Ruth Lisa, you're most welcome. James F., it looks very wet, a little breezy at Ocean City. Not a great week to be there, but I don't see any maybe just a little bit of surf issues there, but I think you'll be with us in the rest of the region. We're all going to be facing some heavy rains. Most of us will have the same impact from these potential flooding downpours arriving as soon as I think rains arrive as soon as Thursday. Excuse me, as soon as Wednesday, with flooding concerns maybe by Thursday. All right, and Michael, same thing with all the beaches in the region. No, so far, no major impact, but a little elevated surf. uh, just watch your local storm surge projections as we get closer. We still don't know where Debbie's going to end up by this upcoming weekend. So there are some uncertainties, but most of us need to be concerned not by wind, surf, surge, but by these flooding downpours from very heavy rains that could come into the region by as early as Wednesday, but mainly late week into the weekend. All right, Deidre, thanks for tuning in. April and Rebecca, very kind. And Liz and Michael, good seeing you. Ruth, Lisa, and James and Chris. All right, I am over my time. I will see you for our 20-minute chat next Sunday. I'm Camden Walker for CapitalWeatherGang.com. Make sure you follow us anytime you need us at Capital Weather Gang at WashingtonPost.com/weather. We'll hopefully be booting Debbie out of here by the time you talk to me next Sunday. And just know it's going to be a wet week after Wednesday. The rains could arrive as early as Wednesday. Maybe the cold front on Tuesday night brings us a couple strong storms, but rains later this week could add up to beneficial and maybe turn into a little bit of patchy flooding. So we'll need to watch this with you this week. So stay safe, stay cool on Monday and Tuesday in those feels like 100-degree temperatures for heat index values, and I will see you next Sunday.